Hello. Welcome to Rural Community Assistance Corporation's virtual Start, Grow, Revive Your Business Workshop Series, Module 7. My name is Amity, and I'm a Rural Development Specialist with RCAC. Before we begin, we'd like to take a moment to recognize our funder, the Minority Business Development Agency, for their generous support. In the previous module, we focused on business management. Today, we'll continue our journey on the roadmap by talking about building and growing money.
The learning objectives for module number 7 are to create a business startup or expansion budget, to have the tools to evaluate advantages and disadvantages of thinking big versus bootstrapping, to recognize the importance of financial projections and know where to go for help, and to begin creating a plan to fund your startup or expansion idea. The agenda for module number 7 is as follows: to explore startup or expansion costs, to highlight self-funding and proof of concept, to reflect on your personal or family budget, to talk about financial forecasting, to introduce strategies for funding your business, and finally, to look at next steps.
Now, we are going to talk about startup or expansion costs, what it will cost to turn your business idea into a reality or to grow the business you already have into something bigger. While each business idea has startup costs that will be unique to that particular business, startup or expansion costs can generally be broken into two categories: major purchases and minor purchases and initial expenses. Major purchases include big items such as a building, equipment, or vehicles, like a food truck. Minor purchases and initial expenses include items like uniforms, cleaning supplies, and initial inventory, such as groceries for a food truck. It's important to consider whether all your purchases must be made immediately for the launch of your startup or expansion, or if some of them can wait. This handout is located in your workbook under Module 7 behind the PowerPoint slides. Start with listing each type of purchase, the cost per unit, and how many units you'll need. So for example, if you need aprons and each apron costs $15 and you need 10 aprons, the cost per unit is $15 and the number of units is 10 for a total cost of $150. As you go through this exercise on your own, please don't get stuck on which category something belongs in. It's more important to just get all your expenses down on paper first.
Let's dig into self-funding, meaning using your own money or assets to fund your business. And proof of concept, which means demonstrating that your startup or business expansion idea is feasible. Let's talk about self-financing. Have you heard of the term bootstrapping? This term refers to a business that launched and built from personal finances and operating revenue rather than outside investment or loan funds. Say you want to start a restaurant, but you don't have the money you need. Maybe you could buy a food truck and start there, or maybe start even smaller by doing catering jobs. Then, after your business starts making money, you can turn revenue into something bigger and grow your business over time. So, what about your business idea? Is there a way you can bootstrap and build your business startup or expansion in phases? Set out in search of evidence that your product or service works. By finding customers, an entrepreneur finds proof that their startup or expansion idea will work. Can you create and sell a prototype? Can you do a pilot or trial run? Let's say you want to start a landscaping and snow removal business. You might want to see if people in your community will actually pay you to cut their grass or shovel their snow in the winter for a season before you go out and purchase a lot of expensive landscaping equipment. This type of proof of concept also is a way to test your idea before jumping in with both feet. The more customers you can find through proof of concept, the less need you'll have for business loans or outside investment. Ultimately, it's determined by the customer whether a business will succeed. Bootstrapping and proof of concept allow you to think big, start small, and act fast.
An important part of self-funding or bootstrapping your business is knowing how much you can realistically contribute toward your startup or expansion costs while keeping your other personal and household expenses in mind. But even if you're planning to get a small business loan, lenders typically require borrowers to contribute their own money to their business to show they're committed to making their startup or expansion idea work. This makes having a personal or family budget an important part of your business planning process. Knowing the real numbers, not guesses or estimates or assumptions about where your money is coming from and where it's going, is one of the first steps toward making your business startup or expansion goal a reality. Now that we know the importance of developing a personal or family budget, we're going to take a little closer look at how to develop the budget. Please take a second to find the Personal or Family Budget handout in your workbook behind the Module 7 tab after the Startup or Expansion Budget handout Chris talked about a minute ago. There are two sections of the budget. First, we're going to focus on the top section, income. In this section, you'll want to list the different sources of money that come into your household each month, whether those are full-time or part-time jobs or other reoccurring and consistent sources of income. Since most employers pay their employees every 2 weeks, this budget form has been set up so you can enter 2 paychecks each month. But if this isn't how money comes into your household, don't worry. The important part of completing this section is not to have it filled out perfectly or to have it look the same for everyone. The important thing is taking time to think about and write down how much money comes into your household each month. The second section of the form looks at your expenses. In this section, you'll want to list all of the different household expenses you pay each month. There are rows for house or rent payments, utilities, car payments and car insurance, healthcare and child care costs, and other common household expenses. There are multiple columns in case expenses occur more than once a month, like buying groceries or gas. Again, the important part of completing the expense section is not having everything filled out perfectly, but to think about and write down how much money leaves your household each month. If there are expenses like groceries or gas that vary from week to week or month to month, try to estimate the average cost. This is just a quick introduction to the personal or family budget. We'll be sure to answer any questions you might have during our next online interactive session. But if you want help in the meantime, please reach out to Nick or Madison. As you work on developing your family or personal budget, it's important to ask, do you have funds left over at the end of each month to help you launch or expand your business? If so, great! This should make the process of getting your business idea off the ground easier. You might want to think about setting up a savings account if you don't already have one and putting money aside each month that you can use to help launch or expand your business. But if not, are there ways you can reduce your monthly expenses or create additional income? For example, do you have a newspaper subscription or other subscription service you pay for but don't need or don't even use? Or could you do food fundraisers to help bring in money to launch or expand your business? Making these kinds of small adjustments over time can add up before you know it.
Now, we will move from talking about your personal or family budget to talking about financial forecasting, which is really just developing a budget for your business over a 1 to 3 year period. What is forecasting? Financial forecasting, just like weather forecasting, involves creating a best guess or an estimate of what is likely to happen in the future. And just like with the weather, forecasting is not an exact science, especially here in Montana. There are always things that will happen that we didn't plan for. However, simply because you do not know 100% what the future brings, this doesn't mean you shouldn't try to think ahead about your business's financials. Financial forecasting is considering where you are financially now, what you currently own, and what you currently owe, and estimating what will happen with your business financially over the first 1 to 3 years. It's a best guess and can include a few scenarios. Your financial forecasts can and should be reviewed often to really get an accurate picture of where you are. Did what you expect to happen come true? With new information, you can change your forecast to be as accurate as possible and to help plan for the future. It's important to keep in mind that forecasting is based on a set of assumptions, what you think will happen with the knowledge you have. You will need to clearly outline and keep track of the assumptions you make and be able to easily explain them, which means taking notes on your finances in whatever way that works for you. As your business grows and as time passes, it's absolutely necessary to revisit these assumptions you made to see if they really are reflecting reality. Good forecasting accurately estimates income, what money your business is earning, ramp up. While we all wish we could throw open our doors on the first day and be busy with customers, for the most part, that is just not realistic. Even with the best advertising and marketing, it will take time for customers to realize you are open for business or realize you have new products or services available. Seasonality of demand. So if we go back to the landscaping example, you probably won't have much income or might be closed completely during the winter months when lawns are covered by snow. One way to ensure you could stay open year-round would be to offer snow removal during the winter months. Other categories of expenses. This is where the details are really important. Little costs add up, so it's important to think about and write down what those potential costs are so they don't catch you by surprise.
Now we're going to look at the different types of funding you can use to launch or expand your business. The funding you need to start or expand your business idea might come from a variety of different sources. The business owner or owners, friends and family willing to loan the owner's money or invest in the business, crowdfunding, outside angel investors, federal or state grants, though these are few and far between, and banks, credit unions, and nonprofit loan funds like RCAC and NADC. If you're unfamiliar with crowdfunding, that's when you fund a project by raising small amounts of money from a large number of people, typically over the internet. For example, when you see social media posts asking for donations on Facebook that link to a GoFundMe page, this is an example of crowdfunding. Outside angel investors are wealthy individuals who provide funding for small startups or entrepreneurs in exchange for owning a piece of the company. So here, think about Shark Tank, for example. Equity versus debt. These sound like intimidating financial terms, but don't worry, you're already familiar with the concepts. Equity is the money that the owners have invested in their business that does not need to be paid back. Equity is what you own. Debt is what you owe or what needs to be repaid. So if we think back to the last slide, sources of equity funding include owner savings, crowdfunding, money provided by friends, family, or angel investors, and state or federal grants like the Indian Equity Fund grants. Sources of debt are loans that have to be repaid, even if you don't have to pay interest, and credit cards. Be careful though. Too much debt is dangerous. It comes with fees and interests. You can use credit cards, but they charge higher interest rates than traditional business loans. For example, a small business loan with an interest rate of 8.5% might seem expensive until you consider that credit cards often charge 18 to 25% interest. And debt has to be affordable long term. Equity, regardless of the source, is what you own, and you don't have to pay back. Sometimes it's not possible to start a business without getting some kind of loan, but ideally, equity should make up at least 10 to 30% of your total startup or expansion costs. So let's say, for example, it's going to cost you $10,000 to launch or expand your business. You're not going to be able to walk into a bank and get a loan for $10,000. The bank is going to expect you to have somewhere between $1,000 and $3,000 to invest in your business. This is sometimes also referred to as having skin in the game.
Now we just have a few quick next steps to complete before online interactive session number 7. Please fill out the Startup or Expansion Budget handout in your workbook located in the Module 7 section behind the PowerPoint notes. In addition, please fill out the Personal or Family Budget handout in your workbook located behind the Startup or Expansion Budget handout. And finally, can you think of anyone who has bootstrapped or self-funded their business? And just a reminder that we're here to help. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns regarding Module 7 or any of the other material we've covered in the SGR workshop series, and you live on Fort Belknap or Rocky Boy, please contact me, Nick Dorr, with Opportunity Link. And if you're joining us from Northern Cheyenne, please contact Madison Wilhite with the Native American Development Corporation. Our contact information can be found on this slide and also in the front of your workbooks. Thank you again for participating in the virtual SGR workshop series. And just a reminder, believe you can and you're halfway there. We look forward to seeing you in our next online interactive session.